Hello, everyone. My name is Mama Bunny, and I'm so happy to see you here back at the burrow. And to all of our new friends, hello. It's so nice to meet you. How was your day? I hope it went well. And now that you're here, my day's gotten even better. Well, then, I wasn't quite sure what story I wanted to read tonight. And then I thought, I haven't heard from my friend Frog and Toad in a while. So tonight, I figured we could read some of their adventures together. How does that sound? Oh, but we can't have a story unless we're all comfy cozy. So make sure you're wearing something comfy. And don't forget to bring your favorite stuffy. I think they're going to want to hear the story too, don't you? Well then, are we all comfy? Well, let's get started, shall we? Tonight, we're reading Frog and Toad Are Friends. Spring. Frog ran up the path to Toad's house. He knocked on the front door. There was no answer. Toad, Toad, shouted Frog. Wake up! It is spring! Ah! Said a voice from inside the house. Toad, Toad, cried Frog. The sun is shining. The snow is melting. Wake up! I'm not here, said the voice. Frog walked into the house. It was dark. All the shutters were closed. Toad, where are you? Called Frog. Go away, said the voice from a corner of the room. Toad was lying in bed. He had pulled all the covers over his head. Frog pushed Toad out of bed. He pushed him out of the house and onto the front porch. There, he blinked in the bright sun. Help, said Toad. I cannot see anything. Don't be silly, said Frog. What you see is the clear, warm light of April, and it means that we can begin a whole new year together, Toad. Think of it, said Frog. We will skip through the meadows and run through the woods and swim in the river. In the evenings, we will sit right here on this front porch and count the stars. You can count them, Frog, said Toad. I'll be too tired. I'm going back to bed. Toad went back into the house. He got into the bed and pulled the covers over his head again. But Toad, cried Frog, you'll miss all the fun. Listen, Frog, said Toad. How long have I been asleep? You've been asleep since November, said Frog. Well then, said Toad, a little more sleep will not hurt me. Come back again. Wake me up at about 1/2 May. Good night, Frog. But Toad, said Frog, I'll be lonely until then. Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Frog looked at Toad's calendar. The November page was still on top. Frog tore off the November page. He tore off the December page, and then January page, the February page, and the March page. He came to the April page. Frog tore off the April page too. Then Frog ran back to Toad's bed. Toad, wake up! It is May now. What? said Toad. Can it be May so soon? Yes, said Frog. Look at your calendar. Toad looked at the calendar. The May page was on top. Why, it is May, said Toad as he climbed out of bed. Then he and Frog ran outside to see how the world was looking in the spring. The next story is called The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, Frog, you're looking quite green. But I always look green, said Frog. I am a frog. Today you look very green, even for a frog, said Toad. Get into my bed and rest. Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, Tell me a story while I'm resting. All right, said Toad. Let me think of a story to tell you. Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. I will go out on the front porch and walk up and down, said Toad. Perhaps that'll help me to think of a story. Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. And then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. Why are you standing on your head? Asked Frog. I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me to think of a story, said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. Why are you pouring water over your head? Asked Frog. I hope that if I pour water over my head, it'll help me to think of a story, said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. Why are you banging your head against the wall? Asked Frog. I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it'll help me to think of a story, said Toad. I am feeling much better now, Toad, said Frog. I do not think I need a story anymore. Then you get out of bed and let me get into it, said Toad. Because now I feel terrible. Frog said, Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad? Yes, said Toad. If you know one. Once upon a time, said Frog, there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to the bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. How was that, Toad? Said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Oh, what good friends they are. I'm so glad they have each other. You know, I really should invite them over for tea sometimes. I try to keep tabs on all my friends here at the forest. Well then, little ones, it's getting late, and we should go to sleep. So, get all snuggled up underneath your blankets. Hold your favorite stuffy tight, 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 so they know they are loved. Oh, and dream some wonderful dreams. And while you're having those wonderful dreams, I'll get our stories ready for next time. How does that sound? And always remember, Mama Bunny loves you very, very much. Good night.